Hello my model building chums and welcome back to the Yorkshire Modeller. This week we are on issue 7 of Hachette, Build the Bismarck. So before we get started with the actual build for this week, I just want to go through one quick thing with you. On one of the Facebook groups, the Build the Bismarck Hachette 1/200 scale group, I post these videos there, and on the last week's video, a guy called Martin Thompson sent me a message asking me if I was going to make the Bismarck historically accurate. So basically painting the swastikas or putting the swastikas onto the decks. I hadn't thought about it, if I'm honest. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. So I did a bit of Google research and found that the front deck and the very back deck of the ship both had the swastika on. Now you can get these as decals. I didn't know this when I started painting it on, so I got my airbrush out, I got all my airbrush paints out and I airbrushed it on. It took hours and hours and hours of painting and leaving it to dry and painting and leaving it to dry and painting and leaving it to dry and then masking that off and then doing the same thing again. I started with the red, so I just masked off the top there and the bottom there, and then covered all of that bit and all of that bit in masking tape, and then I just blasted it with my airbrush, let it dry overnight, gave it another blast with the airbrush, let it dry again for a few hours, give it another blast, and it took about 3 or 4 attempts, but it was perfect after that. Then what I did, once that was all, the red part was all sorted, I masked that off. I made a mask, a circular mask, and then I masked off these red parts here, and then I painted the white on. The white took even more layers because white paint is ridiculously thin. So it took ages and ages and ages, and I just kept going over it, letting it dry, went over it, let it dry, went over it, let it dry, and then I made a mask for the black part. I just got some really thin, have I got it in here? I don't think I have. Some really thin Tamiya masking tape, and just made the shape out of that, used normal white masking tape to fill in the bigger gaps, and then I sprayed that on. There was some bleeding, some paint bleed on it, which I've had to kind of just touch up with a fine detail brush. But yeah, so that's kind of the end result. I will be doing the exact same thing on the stern decks to make sure that looks accurate as well. So yeah, thanks to Martin Thompson for mentioning that one to me. He also mentioned that his wife... So, issue 7. This week we get started on the anchor gearboxes for the bow. So you've got the actual gearbox itself, you've got the cross shaft, the ends of the cross shaft that hold the anchor chains in place. You've got the 2 parts of the anchors themselves, so that's the anchor shaft and then the anchor bottom, I suppose you can call it. Couple of little rings that go onto the ends of the anchor shaft so you can attach them to the anchor chain itself. And then this is the, I think this is probably going to be the motorised part. This part here will rotate and it'll bring the anchors up and down again. And then you've just got the standard instructions talking you through everything. So it's taking the cross shaft, which was on the page before this one, attaching the anchor chain to the cross shaft, putting the end plate on, doing the same on the other side, and then attaching that through the bottom of the gearbox itself. I think that bit is actually what's going to be the top. That bit's going to be attached to the underside of the deck, and then that's that bit pretty much all sorted. Then you build the 2 anchors. That's everything done for this week. So the parts we've got are all neatly in here. So you've got the part that goes straight on the bottom of the deck for the actual gearbox itself, and then that bit attaches to the underside of that. You've got the cross shaft, the motorised part, the 2 end caps, the anchor shafts, the anchors themselves, and then underneath here you've got the anchor chains there and there. So what we'll do is we'll get started. So the parts we need are that one, that one, that one, that one, and then that and that. So we're just going to do the parts as they come in the issue to begin with. Where's my knife? There it is. So I'll just cut these open. So we can get the 2 anchor chains out. So that's those all sorted and out. So you'll need the following parts: the cross shaft, part 703, the 2 anchor chain reels, which are these 2, not the end caps as I've just called them, the anchor chains here and here. So, first part of the instructions are: take one of the 2 anchor chains, 7.6, and attach the ring at the end of the chain over the hub of the wheel at one end of the cross shaft. So just take that, stretch that out, so it's kind of like that. The arrow in the photo indicates where it should be fitted. So it should be fitted kind of on that little tiny lip just there. Can't see it very well actually. Ah, that's better. That little lip just there. So all you do is you take the ring that's on the end of the anchor chain just there, and then you attach that over there. He says you will go on. There we go. There we go. So that's all attached onto there nicely. He says. There we go. And next is take the anchor chain reel, this one, and fit it on the end of the cross shaft where the anchor chain is fitted. As you fit it, make sure that the anchor chain feeds straight out of the opening on the reel and does not tangle inside the drum, formed by 7.3 and 7.4. See the inset detail. So on this, there's a little kind of, that little kind of indent there. That has got to go where the chain is. Well, get in the camera, James, that usually helps. So that's got to go there. So where the chain is actually attached to the wheel, that little indent has got to go there. Like that. So I'm just going to get this off camera for a second just so I can sort it. It's very fiddly, this bit. There we go, that should be on. It's almost on. What I'd probably say, from looking at it as close as I am now, is try and make sure the chain is not hooked over the double part of the ring. It's like a car key ring, this. So try to make sure that the chain itself is where the ring is on its single link, like a single piece of wire, because it goes on the hub easier, on the actual crossbar thing. And the actual, that's better. There we go, so that's all on now. So you can see, if I get that in the camera, just there you go. See, there, where that connects. So all we have to do now is the other, exactly the same on the other side. So the instructions say repeat the steps 2 and 3 with the second anchor chain and the second anchor chain reel at the other side. Again, make sure the anchor chain feeds straight out of the drum opening. I'm going to try and get these as symmetrical as I can, because then it's going to help later when we're actually doing the gearbox if they're both equal, because the anchors are both going to come up equally then. There we go. That's that part on. Sorry I'm having to do this off camera, it's just it's a pain to try and get it spot on camera as well. There we go. So what we've got here is there we go. So both of the anchor chains there, attached to the cross shaft there. So that's that bit done. Now it's fit the cross shaft onto the gearbox housing. Place the upper part of the gearbox housing on your worktop, past the ends of the anchor chains 7-6 through the two large openings in the gearbox housing as indicated by the arrows. So that is these two openings here and here. Now the easiest way to do this is, pop that the other way around, is to pop it down on the worktop, and then according to the picture it's making sure the cog, that cog there, is going through that side. And then you just lift that up and just pass the chains through it like that. So basically when you've got it laid down, there's a couple of bits of plastic here that look like where this piece that you get this week will go. So that piece there with the kind of the cog and then the gear, that looks like it should go in there, or maybe it'll go the other way. Yeah, so that will go in that way round, and then that will turn, and it should, looks like it is actually, yeah, and then that will, as that turns, it'll wind the cables in. That's cool. So yeah, so they're all through there, so just making sure you get that in the right position. Back in the box till we need it next week. And then it's insert the cross shaft 7.3 into the holes in the upper part of the gearbox housing 7.2. The ends of the shaft fit in the recesses and the cog should be sitting between, positioned as indicated by the arrow. So yeah, that cog there needs to go between these two pieces of plastic here. And that's that bit done. So that's the actual gearbox itself finished. For this issue at least. What we're going to do now is we're going to go on to building the two anchors. So we'll get the anchor part. So there's the bottom of the anchors there and there. Anchor shafts there and there. Then we've got the two rings that are in a separate little poly bag. So cut that open. And then the two little rings there as well. So, two tiny, tiny rings. One there, one there. And according to the instructions, holding the anchor arm as shown. So this is the anchor arm, the kind of the rounded piece there. Insert the shaft through the opening of the arm from below, using tweezers if needed. So all you do, where there's the little sort of loop on that bit's got to go at the top. So that bit goes in there first, straight through. And that there is your anchor. So I'll do that on both of them. And then that's all attached. And then it's attach the ring anchor, attach the anchor ring 7.7 to the eye of the shaft in 7.9. Repeat these steps 1 and 2 to complete the second anchor. So all we do now is we take these tiny, tiny little rings and attach them into that hole. I really hope my fat fingers can do this, because they are tiny little things. There we go. So try if you can to get your nail underneath there, because then that gives you enough space potentially. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use my knife to hold this open. Also, quite niftily, it stays on there. Now, if you're going to do it this way, two things try not to do. Try not to scratch the paint, and, slightly more importantly, try not to stab yourself. It's not going to go on. It's that annoying thing you get with your key ring. You're trying to put a house key on there. So I finally managed to get the ring on. As you can see, I'm using my daylight lamp for this bit just to make it a bit easier for you guys to see. So yeah, that's the ring that's on the end of the anchor chain. The end of the anchor, sorry. How I had to do it was I had to use my nail or something thin to hold the ring itself open like that, and then you slide the anchor shaft in horizontally and then flip it, and what will happen is you'll get the actual anchor shaft into the hole, will get into the ring, and then all you do is you just pull that round and then that's on there like that. That was fiddly as hell though. So that's it for issue 7. In issue 8, we get the next section of the hull and some more plant-on details for the deck, just on there. So that's the next hull section. You get the roller fair leads, which are probably to do with the gearbox that we've just done in this issue. And then we get some, I think it's an anchor chain guide, and some more deck accessories. So that will be coming next Thursday. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As before, like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions, and we'll see you next week.